They think Junior exists me for what I am, and I think you better head too. You know, honey, I'm okay, you're okay. That there's what it is.
I know, but honey.
I need a map.
I hate this! I know you do!
You're next.
Oh, I'm next?
Yes.
No, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
The
Cinemaniacs.
Yes.
So we're back
We are.
we've both seen a lot of films. We may or may not
Maybe
talk
not the
about
same ones.
Not likely.
You never know.
Did you see the first film on our list today?
I did. Would you like me to discuss it and
I would
present
love
it to
to.
our lovely viewing audience?
Are they lovely?
Yeah, they're looking good to me.
Feel free.
Send checks to Cheshire. No, wait. Okay. We're back in that smooth segue of a transition, to be redundant. Jack Black and Cate Blanchett are custodians over a young man who, he's just an innocent young boy just wanting to get along in life, aren't we all? But unfortunately, there are nefarious powers throughout the world and throughout the universe that are trying to end it all for us good people. And they're really kind of focused in the house with a clock behind its walls.
Eat at our refreshment counter. Treat the family.
Hot time in the old town tonight.
So yeah, okay, this looks like, you know, for want of a better term, a ripoff of the Harry Potters and all those kinds of things.
I think all the studios have been desperately looking for another Harry Potter type thing that they can string through 5 movies.
Right, I don't know if this one has that kind of legs, but Jack Black I've learned to really like in his kind of offbeat humor. Cate Blanchett is always good. The kid is good. I was really surprised at this. I went in thinking, okay, I got a couple hours. I thought the effects were just terrific. It was a little long. They kind of stretched it out a bit too much. It took a while to get the kid to them, to their house and everything like that. So there was, I hate to say this, there was so much character buildup.
Too much character getting in the
all
way
this
of the plot.
What do we need about plot? So I enjoyed, once we got there and he got involved and it's kind of this weird discovery thing, I thought it was a lot of fun and I was really surprised by The House with a Clock in its walls, not behind its walls. So.
Now, this was directed, it's big.
What a surprise.
Okay, a lot of it was made, this is an Amblin production,
I
Steven
was expecting
Spielberg.
a lot more decapitation and
It was
cannibalism. And
directed by Eli Roth, who is
Yes.
known for extremely gory modern horror films,
Yeah.
like the Hostel films and Green Inferno and some other stuff. So perhaps this man has a flair for the genteel.
There you go, yeah, that'll be the day.
And I don't know. I didn't see this. I was interested in seeing this. I had totally forgotten that Roth was involved. So I'm curious to see it just on that aspect alone. So was something
Speaking of genteel topics.
Speaking of genteel subtlety, Michael Moore is back again with a documentary discussing the current presidency and world country that we live in. It's actually really kind of amazing that he could take the title to his perhaps best known previous film and just swap the numbers and it's applicable to something else. This is Farenheit 11/9.
Show starts in 8 minutes. Yum, yum.
So we can agree it's subtle.
Yes, absolutely, right.
I've watched and enjoyed Michael Moore's work since Roger and Me, his first big hit, about Flint, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
I watched TV Nation when it was on. And okay. Oh, don't get political. Sorry. If we were talking about a Dinesh D'Souza film, we'd be political too.
Absolutely.
We probably would just like it less. So Michael Moore has anybody who makes a documentary, they have a point of view, they have an agenda, they have a look at things, and that's fine. Be clear about it. Don't subterfuge. Anybody who knows Michael Moore, you know where he's coming from. You know which side he leans toward and which color his underwear and socks are. And so that's what this is. So it is basically saying, okay, we have this presidency now, and how did we get here? And he says it in terms I can't quite say on TV right now.
Starts it right off.
But then he kind of goes elsewhere. Full disclosure, I didn't see this entire movie. I was playing both ends against the middle at the Alamo. I was trying to see 2 films, and I figured, well, if I leave this one a little early, I can catch this other movie that's really hard to see. And the more we talk, the more I probably missed a good deal of this film. So I will speak upon what I did see. So it's the typical Michael Moore thing where he's talking about Flint. Okay, so Flint is in the news. It is legitimate,
right,
and it does speak to larger issues. So this isn't all about the current president. We go back and forth to that, but a lot of it is just about big business and maybe political corruption.
I got the sense it was
screwing
about
the little
activism.
And ultimately, this is what I like about Michael Moore films. He doesn't just trash somebody and say, you're evil and my side's good. He says both sides are not good in this film.
Sure does.
One more than the other. But he does lay blame. And I was really surprised. I'm like, wow, he's calling the shots as he sees it. And also, he offers hope, and he offers potential solutions, and he does show you, here's what these people are trying to do, and it's working in little places. And
right,
maybe if more people do this, more widespread solutions can be found. That's really nice to see, because most of all you see online is, this side is terrible, you're an idiot, you're awful, you're dumb, you don't know what you're doing. And that doesn't get anybody anywhere, and it doesn't make you, frankly, want to get up in the morning. So what I did see of this was very well put together. There were some of the things I don't like about Michael Moore films, which is when he does stunts. Like he shows up to the mayor's office in Flint with a glass of water, and he says, well, you say the water's safe, would you drink this? And the guy rightfully says, I'm not going to drink a glass of water that you just pulled out of who knows where. It's just no rational human being would do that. Or he gets a thing of allegedly Flint water and he hoses down the governor's mansion with it. It's
he goes
cute,
in
but
to do a citizen's arrest of the governor.
Exactly. It's like, where do you think you're going to get? You're doing
cute.
this to be controversial and whatever. But he touches on a multitude of subjects. Okay, I'll go as far as I can with this and then I'll hand it off because I didn't see the whole movie. So he starts with the current presidency and a theory as to how it happened, which is humorous and fairly plausible. And it's very, or what started that campaign, it totally makes sense.
Oh, okay, right. I see.
It's silly, and you're like, oh, God, that's probably true, and this totally makes sense. Then he goes to Flint, because that's his bread and butter. That's what Roger and Me was all about, GM pulling out of Flint and decimating that whole entire economy there. Now it's about the water there and how that happened, which is, I didn't know. I just knew that they had bad water there, so now I'm more deformed about that. And then he goes on to the Parkland shooting and what those kids are doing. And as you're right, I didn't think about it watching it because I didn't see the whole movie. It is about activism. It's something bad happens, and the average people try to do something to make it better. I scooted, not out of spite, but because I was trying to see another movie while he was talking to the Parkland kids and what they were trying to do.
Okay.
So that's all I saw of this movie. So as with any kind of very skewed documentary, you're preaching to the choir for the most part.
Yeah.
A lot of people on the other side hate Michael Moore. They don't want to hear anything he has to say. At the same time, Dinesh D'Souza makes films that are extremely right-wing, and nobody to the left of that wants to see those. So I don't know if this is going to do any good. At best, this film will get more people to want to be active in their community to make things better. And I would like to think that both sides of any kind of spectrum would both say, you know, people should drink water that is not going to kill them, and stuff like that. So I guess I would say, if you like Michael Moore, you're going to probably like this. If you hate him, I can't imagine you'd give it the time of day, even though you might learn a little something. And it's another Michael Moore film.
I think for me, and I like his movies, I think I'm learning to be tepid about his persona when he does those stunts and things like that. It seems so, and I firmly believe that he is doing this in a sincere effort to help things. But he's, like you say, his stunts are so like, really, Michael, come on. That's just kind of
And it is manipulative
silly.
in the editing and in the music at times. And
Well, but that's what
trying to be funny.
all
and
docs
all that.
are, right? Any film is going to be manipulative. But yeah, I was, I think it's insincere the way they sell this in the trailers as an anti-Trump movie. Because
It is, but that's not all that it's about.
right, that's not all that it's about. It starts with that. We back up. He was on a Bill Maher's show, and he was talking with Bill Maher, and he said nobody wants to see 2 hours of Trump, so I had to put other things in there, and everything he talks about. I hate to say this, the situation in Flint always has been and is deplorable, and I was so saddened to see. The real negative material that he had about Obama's trip there. But I'll admit to saying, really, Flint again, we know it's awful, but, you know, as a resident there, I can't imagine that he wouldn't want to keep saying, hey, help out this town. But I found myself getting a little bit tired, and maybe it was because I thought this was going to be all about Trump, which I didn't necessarily want to see either. So then I felt as I was watching it, wait, this is about Trump. Is this about Flint? Is this about Parkland? Is it about guns? I thought it was really, didn't know where it was going. And I left the theater thinking that was just kind of jumbled. And then in thinking about it in our discussion here, I think it is a movie about activism and saying, because we found out that of all of the voters, nearly half of the voters of America don't vote. And it's about those people are the ones who, whether you like Trump or not, put him in the office because they didn't go out and support the other side if you wanted the other side to win. And it's about just get off the bench and do something about it if you've got an issue. So yeah, of all of his films, is this continuing the trend? I thought this was less interesting and less maybe informative, with the exception of some startling stuff, as you say, on the Democratic side as well. I wasn't crazy about 11/9, but it's certainly it's an appropriate time to be talking about it.
Indeed. So that's all that we saw in the theater that we're going to talk about right now. We'll move on to video. And if there's time at the end, maybe
Sure.
I'll blabber about the other stuff I saw. But if not, we'll move on to that which you can see on the home video service, format, device, or psychic medium of your choice.
Right. Plug
First
right
up
in.
is a
Yeah,
film.
if you want to, if we're talking about society collapsing, we
There
may
you
as
go.
well talk about society collapsing, perhaps for a different reason, because unfortunately, there's a little kind of micro society out there, way the heck out there on an island, and things are going wild with all these very old reptiles that like to chew on people and bite them with their little teeth. Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard want to help them back. We've seen them before. They're back again to save Jurassic World: The Fallen Kingdom.
That leaves you with a nice warm glow.
Really? Again? This felt to me like the exact same one. The same characters, same. I mean, what more can you do with the dinosaurs? Of course, we get an even bigger dinosaur. Oh, here's a bigger and badder T-Rex. But I didn't think the effects were all that great. I just, I think I'll probably enjoy this more on video because, once again, as everybody knows, I think my criteria are much lower. The bar is a lot lower if I'm just sitting there watching it. But going out to the theater and everything, I was really disappointed in this.
Yeah, me too. I really had a good time with the first Jurassic World film. It reminded me of the Dinosaurs Attack bubblegum cards from the late 80s, early 90s. Just gory and gruesome and animals just tearing into people, or dinosaurs tearing into people. So this, I was like, oh, cool. I guess more of the same. I guess I thought it would go somewhere different. And basically what it is the island has been abandoned, the park has been abandoned since the previous film. They go back to try to get the dinosaurs off for one reason or another. Big action sequences, good effects, all that there. But then the rest of the movie takes place in an old mansion.
It's a stupid subplot, yeah.
With this subplot of this weird little girl and her grandfather who is up to no good in some way. And the not to give anything away, but if you don't want to know, just cover your ears for like 10 seconds. The idea is that these rich people are taking the dinosaurs and auctioning them off as weapons to other foreign governments and nefarious people. But that results in all of the dinosaurs and our heroes in cages for like the whole 3/4 of the last part of the movie. So you're like, wow, these people are all locked up in cages right now, and they're talking a lot, which is okay if the dialogue's interesting. And then at the end, there's a bit more mayhem, and it leads to a setup for a third film, which is what I honestly thought the second film was going to be. So for me, this whole thing felt really inconsequential. It felt like, I always say, like a webisode or a comic book series that comes out near a movie that, it fills in the gaps between these two films, and nothing really important happens, and any characters we introduce and kill off aren't really important. Like, I feel like you could skip this movie and go to the third one. Like, if you now shoot a webisode that erases Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom and connects Jurassic World to whatever the third one's going to be, and you'll have two really solid movies in 15 minutes that bridge together. So yeah,
A good Jurassic World sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I guess it's the inside that's better. So anyway, I don't know why I'm making that illusion.
Speaking of Ice Cube,
Weren't we?
we always are off the air.
There's
MVD,
an Ice Cube in here. Hopefully he's not. Hopefully he's not suffocating.
Is that in 3 parts in high definition?
But I'm bummed.
So what we're going to do now? Do we have a trailer just for the first one?
Yes.
I think. Okay. So MVD Marquee Collection. MVD, they're going crazy. They're putting out these reissues that are really cool. They have released Barbershop. I'm not going to go the usual format here. They've released Barbershop, Barbershop 2, and Beauty Shop to Blu-ray with a load of extras. And here is a trailer for Barbershop, and then we will discuss those 3 films as a group. Barbershop.
They've left their fields and barns. They're marching from the farms because kids don't drink enough milk.
Okay, I misspoke. We do have trailers for all three films, so we'll go one at a time.
So
you've
you don't
seen,
have to listen to you talk.
No,
as
God,
long.
no.
You'll have 5 minutes or so.
So I guess I had seen this a long time ago and didn't
I
remember
saw
much
this in
about
theaters.
it.
I loved it.
But when these came out, I was like, really, Barbershop? And people I talked about, nobody wanted to watch these with me. And they're like,
Really?
oh yeah, Barbershop. So I popped it in, and almost out of the gate, I'm laughing my head off.
Yeah.
This movie is so much fun. The cast is so good and diverse and funny, and it's just, it is a joyous thing. And
I
it's,
agree,
at its minimal core, it is a bunch of people in a barbershop ragging on each other and trash talking and having conversations and good-natured arguments, and that alone is funny. I can't believe they never turned this into a TV show. This feels like it
Yeah,
would be a
that's a good
sitcom
point, yeah.
so easily. So you have Ice Cube, who's the owner of this barbershop, previously owned by his father. You have Cedric the Entertainer as the oldest employee, who nobody ever sees cut hair. He's just there all the time. You get the old guy who plays dominoes and the regulars who come in and out, and then a group of younger stylists there. And part of it is just dealing with stuff in the community. Stuff is dealing with, I don't know if it's African American issues of the day or what it is, but it's intelligent, and it deals with stuff that you wouldn't expect from a movie like this, and
Right.
not in a Tyler Perry after-school special, heavy-handed kind of way.
Right.
It does it in a way that's like, it's kind of light, but it's making a point here and there. It reminded me a lot of Car Wash, which is a movie I love. It has been mostly forgotten, which is a good workplace
Car Wash.
ensemble comedy. Great soundtrack too.
Yep.
Music in this was really good. There's a sequence where they start playing a song and everybody starts dancing, and I'm like, yep, this is fantastic. Boogie on down. So
Right.
I really, really liked Barbershop. I think if this had been made in the 70s, you'd be speaking of this in a much more classic term than you are
yeah.
now. I think it gets dismissed for whatever reason, and it's really unfair that it has been. So it's a MVD collection, so they do a really good job with their stuff. This thing is loaded with extras. There's like 1 or 2 commentaries, video commentary, gag reel, blooper reel, deleted scenes, making of music videos up the wazoo. I didn't get a chance to watch any of it, but I looked at it and I'm like, so I'm saving this disc for a little longer to watch all this stuff. I don't know how much of this was ported over from a previous release. I have to imagine most of it was. I don't know that this is necessarily a new transfer, but it looked and sounded great. So I loved Barbershop. Partly I think I loved it more because I didn't expect I would like it this much.
Okay.
But I highly recommend that. And you, I'm sorry, I've been blabbing. You said
No,
you
I
had
remember
seen
seeing it in the theaters, and just it introduced me to Ice Cube, who is one of my. I'll see anything that he's in. I think he's just fascinating actor, and I just remember laughing my head off at this in the theaters, and I'm looking forward to being able to see it again, on video.
So along with Barbershop, the sequel is also has also been released. These are all out now. I'm playing catch up here. So here is the trailer for Barbershop 2.
They're back in business.
You can reach it quickly, comfortably, and with utmost economy.
So you see the seeds being planted for the next
Exactly
movie
right.
we're going to talk about there. So here's a sequel. You get the entire cast back, plus Queen Latifah and the beauty shop next door, which leads to what we're going to talk about later. And I didn't like this one as much. It starts
I don't
off.
remember being crazy about it. Yeah.
It's a different writer, different director, and that probably says. And maybe there was only one strong movie's worth of this content. I don't know. It starts with Cedric the Entertainer in the past, and you see how he meets Ice Cube's father and the history, and they get into sort of civil rights. I think it was the night that Martin Luther King was killed, and they're dealing with rioting and all that. And so there are things like that come up through the movie. Again, issues of race and history and culture. That's nice to see in a comedy you think is just going to be dumb and crude jokes.
Right.
Which again, these movies happily are not that. They're not a bunch of dumb, drug and potty humor at all, which is shocking in this day and age. These movies are from Barbershop was 2002, Barbershop 2 was 2004, and the one we're going to talk to next was the following year, 2005. And they're still making these. Like watching all of these, even though it was diminishing returns for me, I still want to see the new ones because I want to see those people together again and maybe that magical spark again.
Right.
So here, the conflict, as you see in the trailer, is that this chain, like a Supercuts, is moving in directly across the street. Nappy Cuts, it's called, which is this ultra super high-tech salon, and they're worried about, there's a theme of gentrification and chains moving in and eradicating the neighborhood stores in the neighborhood, which is a real thing. And it's reflected in, are they going to survive, or what are they going to do to try to compete, and are they going to sacrifice their identity, try to be more like something they're not to get business? That is all interesting. I just found it not as funny as the first one was, but it was still fun. So, also good transfer, also loaded with extras, almost the same. Like if you made a list of the extras categorically,
Right.
it's the same for both. So
Okay.
they're really, really loaded with stuff if you like these or if you want to know more about how they're made. Now we move on to the third film in the series. I'll give the guys a moment to cue things up. Queen Latifah stars as the same character she played in Barbershop 2, only she has now moved to Atlanta with her daughter, and she finds herself working for, it's actually pretty funny, Kevin Bacon as a very flamboyant stylist who runs a shop. She says, "Take a hike, Mike," and opens up her own beauty shop.
Headaches, pain mounts up, you feel dull, depressed, tension puts nerves on edge.
So this one takes the barbershop concept, skews it more toward the ladies.
How clever.
Yeah,
But no,
exactly. It's, wow, if only people would revive that idea of gender reversal in cinema
Yes.
these days. But I think it works. It's
Okay.
funny. It's the female equivalent. I mean, structurally, if you look at the breakdown of who is working in the beauty shop, it is kind of similar to the barbershop, where it's like, okay, we're going to reverse the genders, but we're going to have the one person who's not the same color as everybody else, and there'll be issues with that. And we'll get the one person who's, you know, weird or new or old or whatever. But it was a really strong cast. Everybody was likable who was supposed to be, and it was pretty to look at. You know, the beauty shop itself is very, you know, well designed, and Queen Latifah is very likable and easy on the eyes is not the way I want to say it. I mean, she's a nice looking lady, but I mean, she's very easy to get along with.
Yeah, she's got a good screen
she
persona.
relates well. Thank you. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, there's no great stakes in this. It's this woman trying to make a go with her own small business with, you know, I guess the conflict is that the what do you want to call it, the health department or whatever, the regulatory commission keeps giving her black marks, trying to shut her down at the behest of somebody who's her ex-boss, who's Machiavellianly, is that a word? Yeah, it is now. Trying to get her to, you know, not do successful. I don't talk good so much. Anyway, I thought Beauty Shop was a lot of fun, and it is similarly loaded with extras, and those are all out now from the MVD Marquee Collection, I believe they're called, which is a new line that, not as opposed to New Line Cinema, which focuses on more recent, sort of mainstream titles that maybe never had a Blu-ray release
something
before.
20 years or so ago you don't think of as
Yeah.
necessarily
well,
needing.
I'm like, didn't that just come out? And I did the math. I'm like, ooh, that's somebody
that
born.
old?
Somebody born the year that came out's driving now. So yeah, maybe it came out a while ago. So speaking of independent video releases, shall I?
It's all yours.
Oh,
the
it's
rest
all
of the
me.
show is yours. I'll sit around for emotional support.
Ask probing questions. Just don't probe. So here we have an independent horror film out now on DVD, which features Barbara Crampton, who I just saw over the weekend in Reanimator at the Dead Till Dawn show. And she is a woman who is found almost lifeless in the snow by a family vacationing at a remote mountain cabin. And when they bring her in and warm her up, all heck breaks loose when you find that it is not necessarily a living night, but very much a dead night.
Protein you require from wieners made by Oscar Mayer.
So it's out now, Dead
Okay.
Night, and this was interesting. It is.
Is this a new release?
This is a new release. This has been out, again, we're playing catch up because I was inundated with very, very good and exciting films to release to the tune of maybe a dozen when we did a show last week, and you can only fit so many of these things in. So moving right along. It's film, I would equate this with Evil Dead in a way. So this, it's kind of, structurally, it's kind of weird. It starts with something that's supposed to be like 1961, and something bad happens to this young couple who are out on a date in the middle of nowhere, and then we kind of cut to this like Inside Edition or that kind of TV tabloid
To
reality.
fill us in the
Yeah. So you
Right.
have a host who keeps saying, you know, who's talking about the events that you're about to see in the movie in past tense, which you don't quite realize at first. So it's structurally, it kind of bounces around a bit. And some of that TV reportage and interviews with people looking back at the events that are unfolding as the movie goes on serve to kind of spoil what's going to happen, which
I was
didn't
just
work
thinking
for
that.
me. It was
they're
interesting.
not going to die if you see them.
Yeah, and for the most part, those TV reports were done fairly well. Like, it didn't feel like actors pretending to be a cop recounting something. It was pretty well done. But then you get the story of this family who's out in the middle of nowhere in a cabin, and they find this woman in the snow. They bring her in, and she's somebody who's notable. I can't recall if she was a political figure or a TV personality or something. And as they warm her up, she starts acting strangely, and one by one, people start getting possessed. So it's very much an Evil Dead kind of thing.
Okay.
Out of respect for anybody who hasn't seen this, I won't say what the deal is with the movie, what the evil winds up being, but it has the feel of an Evil Dead, where people get possessed and they're aggressive and they need to be stopped. So what it comes down to essentially is the mother of this group protecting the family and fighting off and having to kill these like possessed people who were formerly people she knew. So a lot of practical effects, which I love.
Right.
I don't like CGI, so it's nice to see all the gore and the goop and the gruesomeness is physically there, and it looks, if not real, it looks like it's really there. So effects were really well done. Performances were pretty well done. It was pretty well shot. I just, ultimately, it didn't go enough of anywhere for me to like it. It gets a little it delves into the comedic at times, which was a tone that didn't, for me, work with what else I was seeing.
It's a tough one. Evil Dead 2 did that pretty well.
Evil Dead 2, American Werewolf in London are some of the best examples.
Right.
But a lot of times it's hard, it's jarring. So I didn't really care for Dead Night, but it certainly delivers on the gore if you're into that sort of thing. If you haven't seen as many horror films as we have, you may not draw the comparisons that we do, and it may seem fresher to you. So that is out now on DVD. So now, is it the moment we've all been waiting for?
It is. Cover your eyes. I sure had to.
Okay, so thanks to Tom's deft editing abilities, you will probably not see nudity during the next 2 trailers, we hope. If any nudity slipped through, thanks to my deft editing capabilities, you will not see any nudity in these trailers. We have 2 films from the MVD. They have so many labels now, I'm having trouble keeping it straight. It's MVD. It could be the MVD Marquee Collection. It could be another one. But this is, I have to look it up.
This is Diamonds of Elite.
Diamonds of Kilimandjaro from Jess Franco. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that. And this is the tale of a young girl who is abandoned in the jungle at a very young age and who sort of grows up to be like a female Tarzan. And others go in to try to find her and bring her back. And the hilarity, unintentional, that ensues, and just really a tremendous amount of topless nudity in The Diamonds of Kilimandjaro.
Old Milwaukee tastes as great as its name.
Il n'y a pas le Predator. That wasn't Predator.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So
I was so worried about something else.
The film is available in dubbed English. That might be the only option on this. I don't recall. So Jess Franco. Jess Franco is a name some people know, some people like him, some people don't like him. He is a Spanish director who worked from the late 60s up until his death in the 2000s, I believe. And he cranked out like hundreds of movies. Some were competent, many were not. He worked in every genre. He worked under pseudonyms. He did adult films. He did superhero films. He did dramas. He did horror. He did everything. These are, Jess Franco made a lot of movies. These are 2 of them. So as I was saying, this movie is all shot in the jungle somewhere. The young female lead is topless throughout. She's like a female Tarzan, and really the story is that. She's lost in the jungle. Somebody goes back to bring her back, and there are diamonds that people are looking for, and there's a tribe that's trying to defend their land and their diamonds and all that other stuff. It's really a mess. It's shot in a really interesting location, but it's really not shot very well. If any visual splendor occurs, it is either thanks to stock footage or thanks to the fact that they're shooting in such an unbelievable place.
Right,
you're going to capture beauty in that shot while you're crudely zooming in or adjusting focus or something like that. Acting, I don't know. It's dubbed. Visually, the acting is not terribly dynamic. People move from place to place and do their thing. Story-wise, there's not much to it. It's really not very good. I can only recommend if you're like, I would like to see a nubile female Tarzan for 90 minutes walking around a jungle and dealing with some maybe stuffed tigers now and again. Well, then this is the movie for you. I don't recall how much this has in the way of extras. My recollection is that it is very bare bones. At first I thought, ooh, this is a terrible transfer. And I'm like, no, it's just not shot very well. The transfer is quite good. The audio is razor sharp. It almost seems unnatural how good the audio quality is. It's all shot without sound, my understanding. So it's dubbed dialogue and music and effects and all that, but it sounds really good. And Diamonds of Kilimandjaro comes in a slipcase. It's out now. I don't know who to recommend this to unless you're a real big Jess Franco fan or, again, topless young lady in the desert, in the jungle. Oh, okay. So up next is the other one. And honestly, these 2 are so meshed in my mind, I have to look at my notes to see which is which. And I'll do that. Okay. So here is the tale of another young lady who is whisked off into the jungle by nice natives when her parents are killed because they found, her father found the secret to a great treasure that he's trying to get out of this space. And the treasure and the girl are protected by the Golden Temple Amazons.
Mommy, look what I built! Jimmy, please, not now. I'm too busy.
Ooh.
So, similar but different than the previous film. Again, we have this wild white jungle girl who's raised by the natives, and is living happily and blissfully in her vine-laden lair, and then the white man comes looking for treasure and conflict arises. In this, you have, instead of the sort of the native tribe, you have the Amazons, the titular, how appropriate, Golden Temple Amazons, and their temple, which is actually kind of cool. It was some giant cave where they shot all this, and that was pretty neat. That was different. That separated it from just being shots of, water birds on a beach and mountains and jungles and elephants.
When they killed her parents, right? But it
Yes.
seems like they were nice enough to let her hairdresser survive, too.
Well, for somebody in the wilds of the jungle, the
Yes.
Amazons probably have a fantastic cosmetic department or something,
Right,
because
exactly.
nicely
They look
maintained
great.
perm the whole time. So yes, again, it's dubbed. Synthy score. This is early 80s, 86, I believe, somewhere in there. And it's just silly. There's battles between the Amazons and the white fortune hunters who come in, and the girl is on the side of she's on the side of the white, which benefits the filmmakers, and she's topless for most of the film. So it's really not very good. Again, why you would want to watch this, I'm not sure. If the cover is enticing to you, if again the idea is enticing, or if you want to see more Jess Franco films, here's another one, and it's in HD, and again, not much in the way of extras. It is briefly, blissfully not very long, 90 minutes maybe. It's silly. This is the kind of film that you could watch with a group and laugh at, both of them, partly out of the dubbing, because bad dubbing is bad dubbing, and that doesn't ever help anybody's performance or film. So Golden Temple Amazons, also available from MVD now. Wow, we actually made it to the end of the list.
It's amazing.
So, if I may,
it's your turn.
I don't know if we'll get to this formally on the show. I don't know if it'll come to where we're going. I saw a movie yesterday. What I left early from Farenheit 11.9 is a new movie entitled Assassination Nation. It's provocative is the right word for it. This isn't playing in a lot of places. It's pretty edgy. Basically, it's about a small group. The way I was describing it,
sounds like it's from Schoolhouse Rock, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Assassination. No.
See, now, if they put a jingle in this movie, the lessons would be retained and
There you
learned for
go.
decades
Exactly.
to come.
Don't shoot people.
It is very violent. It is very crude. It is very salacious. It is about a group of 4, I believe, high school girls who are all social media'd up, and it's sort of, it almost feels like The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street mixed with like Heathers or Mean Girls or Spring
Yeesh.
Breakers or something like that.
Okay.
They're sassy, they're opinionated, they're feminist, forward thinkers, and basically the idea in this film is that there is a social media leak. A local mayor has all of his online records exposed to everybody. So it's every email, every text, every post, every photo on his hard drive gets leaked and spread around, and it turns out he was a transvestite and gay and closeted and all that, and it ruins him. And that causes an uproar. And hot on the heels of that, the principal of the school has everything in his history exposed, including things that are pretty innocuous, but once people want to analyze and opinionate and spread things online, suddenly he's painted to be a monster and he has to resign. And it's this cascading event of who's next and who is doing this and the havoc it is wreaking on everybody, and these girls who are involved in various ways and how it's impacting them. And the film ramps up to be incredibly violent, incredibly almost apocalyptic on a very, very small scale, much like that Twilight Zone episode, if you recall, which was about people being told that somebody is a spy or somebody is in league with somebody else, and everybody turns on each other based on nothing other than fear and paranoia and rage and hate. This is the same thing, only applied to today's world of social media and oversharing and over opinionating about other people's lives and all this other stuff. It was pretty good. There were elements of it that I won't get into, because partly they're salacious and partly they're surprises, that I wish had been a little clearer at the beginning of the movie. One character specifically you find is not what they appear to be, and if that had been told up front, a certain scene would have had more impact and the rest of the film would have had more impact. You realize it over time, but it's casually thrown away later than it should have been. The actors are almost uniformly unknown. Joel McHale, I think, is the only face I really recognize in this film. He plays a major role as this local, across the street, father of 1 or 2 with a wife who has had a fling with his babysitter, who's one of the stars of this film, and how that repercusses. And anyway,
he had the fling, or his wife had the fling?
He and the babysitter had a little private time.
Right.
And it can continue to do so online, and then later that gets exposed through one of these leaks. So it was very interesting, very social commenty. very ripped from today's headlines.
Right.
And it was good. I didn't love it. It was maybe a little too nasty and unpleasant for my sensibility, at least when I was watching the film. But watching it so hot on the heels of Farenheit was very interesting. It doesn't cover the same ground, but in very large circles it
Sounds
does.
similar to, have you seen, there's a Black Mirror episode where about social media where you advance by people liking you, and yeah, it was very much like that.
I think it's addressing the same general notions. And that's interesting. If you've never seen Black Mirror, it's on
Black Mirror.
Netflix, right?
Yeah,
British show by Charlie Brooker, or he oversees it.
Yeah.
Modern Twilight Zone, sci-fi Twilight Zone kind of thing. But it talks about social ills or social isms that we're facing now, and it takes them to very grotesque extremes. Not necessarily grotesque in watching it, but just like, here's how far this could go if it's not allowed, if it's not kept in check.
It's some tremendous subtle social commentary.
And
I think some of the best stuff we get is from the British, the BBC.
I love the British TV. It's interesting you bring that up because it's been announced that there's going to be another Twilight Zone revival.
Really?
It's not the first one.
Okay.
There's been a couple.
And there's a new Star Trek coming out.
New Star Trek.
With Captain Picard.
The Twilight Zone revival is going to be hosted by Jordan Peele, who did Get Out, which was a great movie that talked about social issues. And I keep thinking, well, you can say it's Twilight Zone again, but you have a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
The last Twilight Zone that was hosted by Forrest Whitaker in the 90s or 2000s was not very good. The 80s one had some great episodes, but again, was not that great. I say, call it something else, because then you're not living up to that. And I kept thinking, well, Black Mirror is doing it so great. How are you going to make it better than that?
Right.
So it's funny how these all intersect. So by way of saying I saw Assassination Nation, there's a new Star Trek and a new Twilight Zone coming. That's pretty much it. I also saw The Last Dragon, Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon from 1983, on the big screen on an original 35mm release print last night at the Alamo Drafthouse Yonkers. And the star of the film, Timok, was there, and the writer of the film, who's gone on to do other things, was there. And I'd never seen it. When it came out, I thought it looked cheesy when I was a kid, and I never had any interest in it, and I figured I'm never going to like it more than in this scenario last night. And boy, I thought that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
It is silly. It is intentionally funny. It is cheesy. I mean, it's 83, so parts of it are very 1983. But it was a blast, and they had said that the rights revert back to the writer in 2020.
Really?
And he may do something with it.
Huh.
The theater was sold out. It was like a couple hundred seats. The people were crazy for this movie. They knew it backwards and forwards and cheered when the hero had his moment, which made it more fun for me. And they were all interested in a sequel. The writer says he may try to turn it into a Broadway musical because he initially envisioned it as that.
Okay.
But he says, if it becomes a sequel, it becomes a sequel. He said he turned down Sony's offer to do a reboot. He said he didn't like what they were going to do with it, and he said he turned down a lot of money. So you have to respect somebody who turns down money to maintain their vision of the thing they created. The star, Timok, I guess he's in his 50s. He was 19 when he made this movie back in 82 or 83. The man looks like he's aged 10 years in 35 years.
Wow.
So he certainly could jump right back into this film. I don't know what it would be, but anyway, I finally saw The Last Dragon, and I thought it was fun. If you like 80s movies, I'd say check it out. If you like martial arts movies, check it out, because it is a very loving tribute to the films of Bruce Lee. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
So, did you have any?
Not a thing.
Sorry, I've been blabbing. Trying to get caught up. Until next week, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.
Cinemaniacs.